Well, great afternoon to each and every individual. I pray that today has been an exceptional day for you. And I'm starting a little late, had a little bit of technical difficulty. And so, as a result, I just want to kind of jump right in just a moment. But I want to make sure that everyone that is watching and everyone that's going to be a part, because I think that what we have, great. So I think that um, many times when people are watching, sometimes a lot of people will watch, but they won't subscribe or follow or anything like that. So I'm going to ask everyone before we get into this second part is that if every individual would make sure that you would follow, subscribe, and like and share everything that we're doing concerning our content because the more that you share that content, then the better it is for us, the better it is for people that need this kind of content. Sometimes you have a lot of people that just don't know the content is there. And so as a result, they need this kind of content. So if you would you subscribe, follow, like, and share? And there, all the places that you can connect with us is right there on your screen, and you can connect with each and every one of us. Right now on Facebook, Dr. Kevin A. Williams, on Instagram, Dr. Kevin A. Williams, official. Twitter is Dr. KAW official. And for those individuals that want to reach out, ask questions, anything like that, please send it to megabossnews777 at gmail.com. Again, that's megabossnews777 at gmail.com. And these are all the ways that you can connect with us. Please make sure that you subscribe, follow, like, and share all of these things. Please do that and just punch that like button even right now while we're talking. That would be great. The next thing that I'm going to, and hello to each and every individual, ways to give, ways to give. A lot of times we get a lot of content and a lot of information that helps us, but we won't help the place that helps us. And so right now, if you would make sure that you take a look at that, ways to give, $ Dr. Kevin A. Williams, Zelle, Dr. Kevin A. Williams at gmail.com, paypal.me/Dr. Kevin A. Williams, as well as you can mail it to Dr. Kevin A. Williams at 1822 Sharp Road, Greensboro, North Carolina, 27406. All right. So again, these are the ways that you're able to give. All right. So we talked about the battlefield of the mind and really how to deal with and conquer these triggers that come up in our lives. The last podcast that we had, which was 2 weeks ago, because I ended up taking a week off. But 2 weeks ago, when we addressed this, one of the things that people were asking, can you go into this again a little bit more in detail, as well as can you address some other things? So some questions that people have asked, I am going to address those questions as well, because I want to make sure that I am covering all the things that people are asking about. And so again, we're talking about triggers. So the question really is, what is an emotional trigger? You know, and how does it really affect me? How does it work? How does it impact me? What really is an emotional triggers, and what are emotional triggers? Okay. So emotional triggers are anything, and when I make that statement, literally, it is anything that initiates a fight, flight, or freeze reaction in any situation. That's what emotional trigger is. All right. And so that emotional trigger can be, and when I say anything, it could be a person's tone, it could be a person's walk, it could be because all of it tracks back to something in the past. All right. Remember, one of the things that I talked about, and that is a trigger, is something that causes a reaction to something negative that has happened in the past. All right. So this is what an emotional trigger is, and I wrote a lot of things down. That's why I keep looking down. But triggers really are a story that's in your nervous system. So the moment that a person is triggered, it literally sets back to a story or storyline that's in your nervous system, and it's while that storyline is moving, it is making a connection and a relation and a comparison with what's happening right now and what happened in the past. And all of that is merged together. And this is where we are dealing with what is considered emotional triggers, because it is dealing with things that is connected to our past. And might I say, things that are connected to our past that had traumatic impact, because triggers always go back to some level of trauma that has happened in the past. Again, triggers always connect to some level of trauma that has happened in the past. And I see you all saying hello, and God bless you, and hello to you. All right. Literally, it's connected to this trauma. Some trauma you remember, some trauma you don't. And one of the things that I want to make sure, because sometimes people are saying, well, you tell us, or others tell us, to go back to that traumatic experience. What if we don't remember the traumatic experience that initiated it? So let me talk about that just for a second before I go to the next thing. When you're dealing with things that you can't remember, let me tell you why you can't remember what you feel is the initial thing. But sometimes it may not be exactly what you think it is. So let me explain. When you go back to a traumatic experience, sometimes the only reason that you cannot remember something before the incident that you can remember, it is because everything that was building up to it was more like a recipe or a formula. And then it impacts on the person when they have this, what I call an event. And the event is, I was around some people and everybody rejected me, but you were really dealing with, this was the impact of all the rejection and different symptoms of rejection that you had before. Let's get another one. So let's say that something made you really fearful, but you were experiencing so many different little segments of fear from family and friends and circumstances and movies and this, that, and the other, that by the time this particular event happened, now your mind goes back to that event. And when it goes back to that event, then you're saying, well, I know something happened before, but I just cannot remember. Many times it's the reason being is because it's really a part of the ingredients that created the event. All right. So you remember the cake, but you may not remember the flour and the eggs and everything else that makes up the cake, but you just remember the cake. All right. So the cake is the result of all of those ingredients. And so the cake really is where the origin that your emotions or that trauma, because the cake would be the trauma. So because the cake would be the trauma itself, then you're not remembering all the other little intricate details that made up the cake. And I hope that makes sense to you. All right. And so when you're dealing with, now that we're dealing with what emotional trigger is, let's deal then with the next part of that. And I have it, like I said, all listed here, because when you're dealing with what triggers create, because once you have a trigger, then triggers are going to create a different level of intensity in your life. So triggers create intense emotions, and usually triggers create an overreaction. Triggers many times create an overreaction, and that's why it creates such an intense emotion, because that trigger is causing you to overreact on something that it really wasn't that much. And sometimes when you're going back and you're looking at those triggers or looking at what happened, and after you've calmed down, one of the first things that you say is, it really didn't take all of that, or it wasn't that serious. But at that moment, it was that serious. And let me tell you why it was that serious at that moment. Because you allowed those triggers to create such intense emotion that it caused you to overreact. And one of the things that I've explained, and that is that when you have that level of intense emotion, this is what takes place. What takes place is you go back to the origin of what happened. And when you get back to the origin of what happened, you start then creating the response that you should have done when you were 5 years old, 7 years old, or you feel that you should have done it 5 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, 14 years old, or whenever the traumatic experience happened. Okay? And so I want to make sure, and I am watching as people are coming on, I want to make sure that we understand how these triggers work. Let's deal with number 3. What happens when I'm triggered? What happens when I'm triggered? And let's take a look at really what happens. When a person is triggered, you are letting your past dictate your present. Your past trauma, when you are triggered, you are not in the present. You are actually allowing the past to dictate what's happening right now in the present. I'm going to let that sink in for a second, because I want you to think about it for a second. When a person is triggered, it is the past that is dictating and controlling everything that is happening in that moment right now. How I should have responded, how I should have handled it, how I should have done this, how I should have done that. All of that is dealing with these triggers. What I should have done, and you might have been 6 or 7 or 8 years old, but because you were 6 or 7 or 8 years old, and now you are 30 or 40 or 50 years old, you are now overreacting because you're trying to protect the 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old person that all of this happened to. And I hope this is making sense, because you end up allowing the past to dictate really what's happening. And so at this moment, and that's childhood trauma. And a lot of times people are not recognizing that childhood trauma is major when it comes to people. What happened in your childhood actually many times dictates how you handle and how you respond to people in life. Childhood trauma. Now I'm gonna get into some things that probably is going to be a little tough, but it's important that we take a look at really what's happening. So in childhood trauma, because you have had some difficult experiences, and maybe those experiences originated with your family, or maybe it was with a sibling that always handled you a certain kind of way. Maybe you had a dad that was extra hard on you, or a mom that put more on you than she put on your other siblings. Maybe you were only child, and because you were only child, you experienced so much weight on you, because maybe your parents considered they wanted other children. Maybe you're a girl and they wanted a boy. Maybe you're a boy and they wanted a girl. So now they're putting all of these things on you, and now it's a traumatic experience. And what you're experiencing at that moment, you grow up with the responsibility of their disappointment, or the responsibility of the rejection that you felt from other people and things like that. And all of that is a part now of the triggers that are there. For those of you that are watching right now, if any of this is tracking with you or relating to you in any kind of way, put it in the chat right now. And the reason being is because I want to make sure, always want to make sure that I am helping as many people as I can when it comes to things like this. And I'm going to tell you why this is important to me right now, because we're in a holiday time. And because we're in a holiday time, a lot of times we are entertaining people that are from my childhood or people that have created a lot of these traumas. And this is why going back around a lot of these people or environments triggers all of those things again, because really it's taking you back to where it started. And even though you're seeing these same faces and things like that, and people are saying, well, you should have gotten over it by now. No, not necessarily, because how can I get over something that was never really dealt with? It was never dealt with. And because the thing was never really dealt with, now I'm going through, when I'm going on Christmas, going back home and this, that, and the other. And now I'm seeing an uncle or an aunt. Now I'm seeing a brother or sister. Now I'm looking at mom or dad. Now I'm in the house, or I'm passing the room where something happened, or I was violated in some kind of way, or I was picked on, or I was bullied on this particular street. And as a result, all of these things are coming up at one time. And usually those things happen. The reason that holiday times are usually difficult for people, because there are smells like certain foods that are cooking and things like that. And all of these things, the way a person walks or how they walked away or somebody's sarcasm, all of it is connected to some level of a trigger. And as a result, your reaction, because a trigger is you react, you start feeling numb, you start feeling scared, you start feeling fearful, or something like that. All of these things start taking place. And it's amazing. You're going on with your life. You got children, you got grandchildren sometimes. You got all of these things that are happening. But yet and still, how in the world am I in this space right now? And the way that you got in that space is because something presently triggered something and took you back to a place of trauma. Took you back to a place of trauma. And so this is why when someone says no to us, it's a simple no, but we can connect it to a rejection. And it's not really a rejection, it's just a no. And it's amazing because many times what people are not realizing is that while you are experiencing a trigger, have you ever considered the fact that the reason that the person is responding that way is because they're experiencing one as well? Because sometimes we're so busy looking at what's happening with me that we're not considering the fact that maybe what's happening with me is also what's happening with this other individual. And so now we put it on the, you're doing something to me, you're doing something to me, you're doing something to me. They're on the other side saying, you're doing something to me, you're doing something to me, you're doing something to me. And you both are not realizing that maybe both of you are in the same space, dealing with the same kind of thing, coming from two different angles. Yeah. And as a result of that, it determines how you evaluate things, like how you evaluate abandonment, how you evaluate hurt, how you evaluate rejection, how you evaluate this feeling of emptiness, how you evaluate how you found out on social media that there was some kind of gathering that was going on, but you were not invited. So now you feel this rejection, and that rejection takes you back to high school or grade school or something that happened there. And now that feeling is trying to control your present situation. That's what I'm saying. Now we're going to deal with how to conquer these triggers in just a little bit. But before I do that, I've got to address a couple of other things, because I talked about, and there's a diagram that I'm gonna have them to put up, and it deals with where these triggers go and what they connect to. And they connect with feeling, mood, and emotion. And there is a diagram, and I have them put up here, but there's a diagram here, and I want you to see that diagram. I'm going to have to probably, because I can't read that, so I'm going to pull this up so that I can read the diagram. But it's important to me that you know exactly what's on this diagram. And when you're dealing with emotions, and those of you that can see that, and don't worry, I'll show you actually where this is from. You can look at the bottom. It says Dakota Family Services, but you can see that. So emotions. So what are emotions? Emotions are brief, intense reactions. They're brief, they're intense, and they're reactions. Look at what emotion is. These emotions result from external stimuli and are sensations caused by the release of chemicals from the brain. Now, when you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with, when something triggers, it goes straight into this stimulating, and watch what it happens. It's brief, it's intense, and it doesn't cause a response, it causes a reaction. Remember, a response is based on thought. Reaction is based on instinct. All right? So now your emotions affect also, and they run into what causes your emotions to linger. And this is why some people think that they're emotional. They're not emotional. They're actually in their feelings, because the emotions are what? Brief. They're very brief. So now let's look at this. So look at feelings. Feelings are what? Thoughts. They are physical and they are emotional. Feelings are thoughts, they're physical, and they are emotional. We'll deal with that in just a minute, because I'm going to read some things so that you can see it. But feelings are thoughts, they're physical, and they're emotional. Why? Because feelings are physical and feelings are emotional. Some feelings are physical, some feelings are emotional. They're both. All right, so let's look at it. Feelings are our thoughts about the emotions we experience, and can sometimes be distorted and inaccurate. How many times have you realized that your feelings was wrong? But because you felt so strong about it, you determined to make it right when it actually wasn't right. How many times you've been trying to explain something to somebody and they had concluded that they were right, but you knew as they were responding back to you, you're not getting what I'm saying. Why? And the reason they can't get what you're saying is because their emotions caught the definition, their feelings locked it in, and now thought is not coming in because they don't want to hear it, because they believe they got it. Mood. Let's deal with mood. What are mood? Moods, watch this, less intense, they're longer lasting, and have many different types of influences. Moods are how we feel over time and can be influenced by many factors, though they are, watch this, usually less intense than emotions. So now, how does it work together? And so you can see there at the bottom, because watch this, your emotions can turn into a mood, and your mood can affect your emotions, but they all drive to your what? Feelings, because your feelings is where your interpretation, your definition of what is taking place is housed. I hope that makes great sense. Your emotions can turn into a mood. Your mood can affect your emotions. But it all goes back to your what? Feelings, because your feelings is where you have defined, have interpreted, and have concluded whatever it is that you've concluded. Now watch this. Where does all that come from? It comes from past experiences that are not resolved. And because those past experiences are not resolved, we start addressing things in a different kind of way. All right, so let's pull up the website and let's take a look at this. because I want you to see where I am pulling from today. I want you to be able to identify, because I want what after my podcast is over, I want people to be able to go in and see, evaluate, look at your own life and say, you know what? There's some things I got to work on. There's some things I really, really got to fix. All right. So if you take a look at this, Dakota Family Services, and this is something that you can just pull up yourself, and this is emotions versus feelings versus moods. All right. So I'll pull this up. Let's go down just a little bit. And I want to get past this because I want to deal with the emotion side. All right. Stop right there. So emotions, I'm going to read this for you all, and then we're going to have a good talk. Emotions, which originate as sensations in the body, are intense feelings, exhilaration, terror, despair, that last only seconds to minutes. Leave it right there, but I want y'all to think about this. A lot of times you're saying you're emotional. You are not. Why? Because emotions don't last that long. The reason you call yourself emotions is because you don't see the transition from the emotion straight into your feelings. So you say, I'm emotional about it, when actually you're just locked into your feelings. Now watch this. They're controlled by chemicals our brain releases in response to a trigger or event. Basically, our body responds to whatever is happening around us. The chemicals go throughout our body, forming a feedback loop between our body, our brain, and creating emotions. Emotions are always based on external stimulus. And almost always come and subside quickly. In addition to being specific and a reaction to some things. Watch this. Emotions have corresponding and universal facial expressions and body language. So now watch what happens. Leave it right there. So what happens in your emotions, something that happens quick, but your reactions are so quick within those seconds or minutes. And what does it do? It runs you straight into your feelings. Your feelings is where all of this is housed. So my friend, my brother, my sister, please understand something. You are not as emotional as you think you are, but your emotions are triggered to run you straight to your feelings. Now, can your emotions be triggered a lot? Yes, your emotions can be triggered a lot, but watch this. But when emotions are triggered a lot, what does it do? It keeps you in your feelings. It's a loop. It keeps you in your feelings. The moment that you hear certain people's voices, immediately, and I want y'all to think about this. How many times have you heard a person's voice, but within 30 seconds, you've already lost patience? You can listen to somebody else and you're fine. But that person's voice, because the voice triggers you, you immediately are empty of patience. Why? Because it ran you straight into your feelings, and your feelings have defined this person to the point until you've released. I don't have any more patience for him. When in reality, you do have patience because you have patience for other people. So it's not that you don't have patience, but you've defined yourself as being empty for this person. Let's go with feelings. Pull it up just a bit. Let me see it so I can read it. There we are. Stop. Feelings. While emotions start as sensations in the body, feelings are generated from our thoughts about those emotions. Now watch this. You can have an emotion, but you can misinterpret the emotion, but lock the definition of that interpretation into your feelings. And now you've concluded this is how you are. This is what you believe about this situation, this person, because you've immediately interpreted as this particular way. Or in other words, feelings are how we interpret emotions and let them sink in. We use the word feel for both physical and emotional states. For instance, we can feel cold both physically and emotionally. Feelings can be diluted or distorted by the stories we've unconsciously created based on past events or experiences. So watch this. You can lock in and feel a certain kind of way. and conclude it. Today on CNN, there was a gentleman that has been in prison for 20 years. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Been in prison for 20 years. They then saw new evidence and they released him out of prison for 20 years. Now, here's my question to you. From that one situation, how many different people have had feelings about that man that were not true? And they've had those feelings for 20 years. And today they come into the reality that everything they have felt, concluded, and defined about that man was not true. Do you know that many times, even when people that are locked into their feelings, you know your feelings can be so strong that people can be locked into their feelings so much that even when they find out the truth, their feelings are so much of a habit that they don't even want to break it. And they say things like, it's going to take me some time. Why? Because truth is not enough for feelings. Because feelings has locked in a definition that it does not want to release. Mood. All right, let's look at it. Scroll down just a bit, so let me see. Because when we're dealing with mood, here we are. A mood is a state of mind or a general feeling that can influence your thoughts, behaviors, and actions. Moods tend to be less intense than emotions and do not necessarily depend on an event or trigger, rather than being how you feel in each moment. Your mood is how you feel over time. So watch this. If you are locked in the definition of whatever it is that you feel, watch this, it can affect how you present yourself or the mood that you are in. And watch this. It is something, it's not as intense, but it is something that is over time. Can moods be triggered? And the answer is yes. Moods are influenced by what? Environment, diet, exercise, physical health, and what you choose to think about. They can last, watch this, minutes, hours, days. They can last months. And they have no unique corresponding, watch this, nonverbal facial expressions or body language. Now, how do they work together? I'm putting all of this together because I want you to be able to see it. Because a lot of times when I'm talking, people are well, where does he get it from? How does this? And many times what I have to do is pull different things to explain what I'm saying. Because a lot of times when I talk, I just say it. And then people want to know, well, where was the origin of that? Or is there any statistics on that or things like that? So this is why I do it this way. Because I just think that people need to see things, really. All right, so how do they work together and why does it matter? Watch this. Emotions, feelings, and moods all work together to impact how we perceive and live in the world around us. For instance, when we are in a bad mood, we tend to, watch this, experience sadness, anger, and or fear. And we are in a good mood, we tend to experience happiness and or hope. If we are sad, angry, afraid, we may then feel worthless and like our life doesn't matter. All right, very important. Scroll down just a little bit more. I'm going to address a couple other things and nothing will be done with this part. All right, so let me read this to you. In the end, it's more about how you function in the world than understanding the difference between emotions, feelings, and moods. All right, so now, would you take that down? So now this is very important, guys, because now I want to deal with, because some things are triggered by, and this is one of the questions that came up. What about when you're dealing with someone with narcissistic behavior? What if you're dealing with narcissists? Let's address it. Let's address it. Let's address it. Now, before I do, if you have questions, go ahead and put it up and send those questions. I'll read those questions and answer them to the best of my ability. But I'm going to deal with the narcissistic behavior, how they work together, and then I'm going to give you some answers of what is best to do and how to handle this. Because in this season that you're in right now, you want to make sure that you are not going to be controlled by something in the past and end up tearing up Christmas, tearing up the holidays, jacking things up at the company party because something triggered you. So I'm going to show you how to handle that. And then I'll give you some spiritual advice and pull all of this together, and then we'll close out. Okay? So if you have a question, put it up. If not, then I'm going to keep moving, because I think right now a lot of people just may be really learning, you know, and so I want to put things up because sometimes people learn better when they see things because they can remember it better. I was going to do, I'm going to be honest with you, I was going to give you the definition of a narcissist, but I felt like if I put a video up, it's going to be better, because sometimes people can start feeling like, well, you're targeting or this, that, and the other. Not targeting anything. Sometimes when you're guilty of something, you will claim that somebody is actually targeting you. Well, that's a part of narcissism too. All right. But nobody's targeting. We just want to address the fact of what a narcissist is. And then there are 4 different types of narcissists. And if we deal with the 4 different types of narcissists, we deal with what narcissist is, 4 different types of narcissists, then you can see how then it flows into triggers. Okay, so there's a video and there's a doctor that I want you to see. And so let's pull that video up and let's just hear what he says and let's address it like that.
Has narcissistic personality disorder is a person that exhibits grandiosity, entitlement, a lack of empathy for others, tends to be very envious of other people. And this is all a sign of their own personal insecurities of themselves, and they're projecting that onto others. A person that has narcissistic personality disorder is a person that exhibits grandiosity, entitlement, a lack of empathy for others, tends to be very envious of other people. And this is all a sign of their own personal insecurities of themselves, and they're projecting that onto others.
Okay, now let's look at this. Insecurity, entitlement, watch this, and then their insecurities, they then blame on everybody else, because they need a certain level of validation. But if they're not being validated, then they put that on everybody else. That's what you're dealing with narcissism. That's a narcissist. Everybody talks about narcissistic behavior. That is the general definition of narcissist. That's why I said I would rather have this particular doctor show you, so that when I go in the direction that I'm going in, then you understand why I'm going in that particular direction. Please understand. All right, so there are 4 different types of narcissists. 4 different types of narcissistic behavior. Watch this. The first is grandiose narcissist. Grandiose narcissist. The grandiose narcissist is always a mindset of see me, see me, see me, see me, see me. Look at me. A grandiose narcissist need attention all the time. A grandiose narcissist, I'm so great, I'm so this, I'm so that. That's the grandiose narcissist. That is a grandiose narcissist. All right. Now, there are other levels of narcissists, and I know y'all like, well, wouldn't a grandiose narcissist be this, 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 and this? Let me give you the 4, and you may find that what you're thinking of is not necessarily a grandiose narcissist, but another type of narcissist. All right. So what you have now is the grandiose narcissist. And like I said, that person is always see me. Everybody is less than, I am greater than. And that is the mindset of a grandiose narcissist. All right. Next kind of narcissist. is a malignant narcissist. A malignant narcissist. I know some of y'all are writing this down. A malignant narcissist is a person, watch this, that is extremely mean. They're narcissistic, but they are extremely mean. And watch this. A malignant narcissist is mean, and they don't care about anybody else. They don't care about others except for their immediate circle. And it's like they don't care about their whole family, just a small group in the family. They don't care about everybody. They don't care about all people. They're just a small group. So if there are 3 people in my family and 3 people in that I consider friends, then everybody else I don't care about, and I can treat them mean. I can try to damage them, destroy them, because that's what you're dealing with when you're dealing with a malignant narcissist. A malignant narcissist. 3, a covert narcissist. A covert narcissist. I know y'all are writing this down. Please get it. A covert narcissist. Now, they're narcissists, but they're narcissists somewhat in secret, but you can see their narcissistic behavior and you will understand it in this way. They are always feeling like they've been done wrong. That's a covert narcissist. A covert narcissist, I've been done wrong. I've been mishandled. I've been left out. Everybody else has done this, but, you know, they have, I've been looked over. That's a covert narcissist. I am great. I am this, I am that, but this culture doesn't understand my greatness as a result. Why are they always talking about that person and not talking about me when I am equal to them or I'm greater than them? That's a covert narcissist. While I am talking, how many of you all are seeing and understanding some people that are in your life right now? Because a covert narcissist is like, why don't everybody see me and how great I am? Why are they looking at everybody else, not looking at me? I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest mind. I'm the greatest artist. I'm the greatest musician. I'm the greatest. And why don't everybody see me? Why is it that everybody is talking about them and they're not talking about me? That's a covert narcissist. And a covert narcissist, watch this, sometimes almost acts like they're depressed, when in reality, they're not depressed. They need the attention of saying, I am so great, and they need you to validate them, but they're doing it in a covert kind of way. Yep. A covert narcissist. Now watch this. A covert narcissist also is angry, or they get angry when they are critiqued. So the moment that you tell them, well, this is good, but it wasn't good enough for whatever, they immediately can go left and start accusing you of you're a hater, or you're this, or you're that, or you're the other, because they don't like to be critiqued. Not a covert narcissist, not at all. They can go into a class with a teacher trying to explain things to them, and they will claim that the teacher is intimidated of them. You're insecure because of my presence. You're a covert narcissist. You believe that everybody is trying to criticize you because you're so great and they're trying to keep you down. Covert narcissist. The last one is called a communal narcissist. I'm going to show you how this works in just a minute. A communal narcissist. A communal narcissist is an individual that is, I'm doing so much for mankind. I'm off to save the world, but I need to show you what I'm doing. I'm helping the less fortunate, but make sure you take this picture and get my good side. That's a communal narcissist. A communal narcissist is always writing a check. I'm always giving back. I'm also selfless. But in their selflessness, it's always still look at me. But take a picture of my humbleness. Take a picture of my, I'm just doing so much. That's what you call a communal narcissist. Look at everything that I do in the world. Look at everything that I do for the world. Look at everything that I do. Always looking for people to see them. And take a picture of this and take a picture of that and take a picture of this. Now, what am I saying? I'm not saying that when people see you do good, that's a bad thing. But I'm saying that everything that you do, tell me this. How can you honestly help everybody that needs help if in turn you're putting them on blast to show them what they're in need? I'll give you an example. One time, a local news station, we were doing something for the community. A local news station wanted to come in and take some pictures and things like that. And the way things were, I was like, I'm not going to let you do that. They said, well, we want to show the community. I said, I don't want you to do that. And let me tell you why I said that. I said, because how is making somebody else feel bad about this situation make you feel good about what you're doing? Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Sometimes you have to be able to look at the fact of how does it make the other person feel? Let me ask you a question, because I'm dealing with a communal narcissist right now. Let me ask you a question. If you had lost your job, if you were down and out, if your children did not know where their Christmas was coming from, and then you found a group that is going to help you get toys for your children, don't you want to be the hero to your children and not this organization? Those are the 4 different types of narcissists. Now, all of those that I just expressed can create what? Triggers for individuals that watch this are triggered by somebody that was grandiose to everybody else, but treated them like trash. Malignant narcissists, people that just don't care about you, always taking, never giving, always trying to see what they can get next. Covert, that mindset of entitlement, of saying that everybody else is doing this to me. Everybody like their cake, they don't like mine, never considering the fact that maybe your cake just is not good. Communal, where you're always wanting, and all of these are triggers. All of these are triggers. I can't believe that we're right at an hour, but I started a little bit late, so I'm gonna give you some more. So let's look at this, because I've really got to finish this. And I want to make sure I know I've got some questions, so let me tell you what. Let me answer some of these questions before I tell you how to handle these triggers and what you need to do. Okay, so put a question up. Let me see, and let's go from here. Is medication used for some people with any of these situations? Yes. Some of these situations are diagnoses. Some are not, but some of these situations are. Yes. That's the best answer that I can give you. Give me the next question. From a spiritual view, can narcissism be considered a Jezebel or an Absalom spirit? Absolutely. 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 Let's look at it from this avenue. Let's look at it from Jezebel. Let's look at it from Absalom. Let's look at the Jezebel side. The Jezebel side is, remember, God is not right, Baal is right, and I'm going to force everybody to like Baal, or I'm going to kill or destroy them. Look at what happened in Naboth's vineyard. Naboth had a vineyard that her husband wanted, Ahab wanted. Naboth would not sell it. So basically what Jezebel did was had him killed because Ahab was running around crying, being a wimp, basically saying, I can't, nobody will let me play with them. I want my toys. You don't give me my toys. That entitlement. Ahab was entitled. And because Ahab was entitled, that's narcissism. Jezebel was going to force everybody that Baal is right. Jehovah is not right. And so, yes, that is the mindset when it comes to the Jezebel. What about Absalom? Absalom was David's son, but he didn't want David. He just wanted what David had. I want his kingdom. Now think about the level of narcissism that Absalom had to have. He didn't just want his dad's kingdom. He slept with his dad's wives. He wanted to be his dad. Absalom is always someone that is in the son position, but is trying to be in the father position, but need to kill the father in some kind of way in order to have that position. I want what he has. That is an Absalom mindset, spirit. That is a narcissist. That is a narcissist. That is a narcissist. Yep. Next question. Woo! I know I'm making some people hot with me today, but I'm also helping some people to see some things today that they need to see. Can a person be all four of these narcissists at the same time? Not at the same time. Let me explain. You can't be grandiose and covert at the same time. But you can be grandiose sometime, covert other time, malignant other time, communal other time. So can a person embody all of them? Yes, but they don't execute them all at the same time. But great question. Great question. One more question, and then I'll go in what to do. What is the best way to deal with this in church? I think that one of the best ways to deal with it in church is show people the symptoms of their character connected to someone in the Word of God that they would not like to be depicted as. That's one of the best ways. I remember some years ago, and I'll be careful in how I say this. I remember some years ago, there was a particular leader that had a problem with someone trying to undermine them and take over their church. And as a result, and people were swayed in that way. So I'm going to tell you what the leader did. Instead of going in and telling everybody this is wrong and this is what this person has done and this, that, and the other, whatever, what the leader did was did a sermon series on the characteristics of a wolf. And when they did the sermon series on the characteristics of a wolf and lined it up in scripture, the people's eyes became open and saw who the wolf was. Sometimes it's best to handle things like Nathan handled David. Give them the story. Don't be mean-spirited in it, because Nathan actually loved David. But when a person loves you and they've expressed they love you, they're not out to get you. You respect them and they say, listen, this is you. And I've seen that in your character, and I want to help you get to a different place. And that's the best way to deal with it in church. All right. Now, I may take one more question. Would it be considered narcissistic when someone uses zodiac signs to not take accountability for their actions? Most definitely. Most definitely. Most definitely. And when you're dealing with zodiac signs and things like that, you're dealing with something else that really is not of God. And so one of the challenges is that people don't want accountability. They want to take responsibility for those things. Good question. So let me tell you what to do before, during, and after a trigger. Before, during, and after a trigger. Before you have a trigger, make a list of things that trigger you. And I'll tell you why. The reason you have to make a list of things that trigger you is so that when you are triggered, you can identify. This is what and y'all know I'm in church. My mindset is there. So this is what the enemy is trying to use to get me into this place. You got to be able to identify your triggers. You need to list them so that when you go into an atmosphere, you automatically know at that moment, all right, when this is happening, I already know what my triggers are. So when this thing is beginning to happen, I already recognize what's taking place. Because recognizing it when it's coming is you taking responsibility and almost control over the situation, because once you do that, then you're not going to let the past control you. Because please remember, there are a lot of things when you're dealing with triggers, you're dealing with something that of a storyline in your nervous system that happened in the past that now it's trying to connect it and pair it to the present. So you need to make a list. You need to ask yourself the question, all right? Things like, why does this phrase bother me? What is you need to learn those things about you. You got to learn those things about you. Please understand, if somebody knows you better than you know you because they've studied you and you haven't studied you, then you're giving them authority over you. You need to learn you better. Every time something happens, I don't care if it's tragic. I don't care if it's happy. I don't care if it's sad. It doesn't matter. You need to ask yourself the questions. Why does this make me happy? Why does this make me sad? Why does it make me fearful? Why does it make me uncomfortable? You need to ask those questions. When I deal with men and I'm trying to help men get to where they need to be, one of the things I ask them is that ask the question, why do I look? Why do I act? Why do I respond that way? You need to learn that about you, because if not, then you will spend the rest of your life reacting and not responding. And the moment that you continue to react of something, that means that you are not in control. The thing that is making you react is. All right. The moment that you are triggered, this is while the trigger is happening. The moment that you are triggered, identify what the trigger is. And one of the things you need to do is watch this. Calm down, breathe, and remind yourself, this is not the past. And I'm not going to let this situation carry me into a place that originally, that's not who I am. I'm not in that place. I'm not in trouble. I'm not in distress. This is not an emergency situation. I don't have to panic. Why is my palm sweating? You have to be able to calm down, identify, and I am going to say one of the best ways to do that, talk to the Lord. Have a conversation with yourself. Have a conversation with the Lord. Talk to the Lord. I got to listen, Lord. I know that the enemy does not have control over me. I know that this thing is not a control over me. I know that what's trying to happen. I know where this is coming from. I know what all my triggers are. And now what I'm going to do is calm down and I'm going to relax. I'm not going to feel forced to respond. Sometimes when you're experiencing that, and let's say that you're in the middle of something, you have to stop it. While that person is continuing to talk, you got to stop it and say, listen, I need a break. If that person won't listen to you, then say, listen, I need to go to the bathroom. Just give me a minute. I need to go to the bathroom. Why? Because you need to separate yourself to bring yourself back down so that you're not in a place of reaction. You're in a place of response. You're in a place of response. Okay? Now, last thing. After it's over, identify what happened. Let's say that you failed that test. Identify why you failed it. Identify why you failed it. And be honest with yourself and say, the reason I failed that test is because I didn't feel good enough. The reason I failed that test is because I felt abandoned. I felt this, that, and the other. And when you do that, you relate it to the past and then say, you know what? Then I misdiagnosed this atmosphere. I misdiagnosed this circumstance. Because let me tell you what happens. A lot of times what people are trying to do in triggers is force people to see things your way only. And you've got to be able to look at both sides of that. You may still come to the same conclusion, but you still got to be able to identify. I can see where he, she, they are coming from. Okay? I'm going to answer a couple more questions and then I've got to go. All right? And then we'll let it go. What should you do when the triggers from a childhood is being done by a person in the present? Let's try it again. What should you do when the trigger from childhood is being done by a person in the present? What happened then is happening again. Leave it right there because I want to be able to look at it. When a childhood trigger is happening in the present, you got to remember these are two different incidents. They are similar, same kind of situation is happening, but they're two different things. Now, here's the reaction, or here's the response that you got to do. If you feel like, because if it's a trigger, then that means it's a trauma. And if it's a trigger and a trauma, then this is how you have to put it. And that is that I am going, when I was a child, I was immature. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to think. I didn't know how to process it. Because I am an adult, now I am going to handle and respond to this appropriately, the way I did not respond to it when I was a child because I was immature and I was a child. Paul says it like this: when I was a child, I spake as a child, I did as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. Consider the fact that Paul was actually getting rid of what? Some old things that were old triggers in childhood. That's a good one. Can actually help strengthen you from your childhood trauma. I hope that blesses you. I hope that blesses you. All right, guys. I've got to go, but I will say this to you. I pray that today has helped you in some kind of way. And at least it is, if it did not help you completely, it started you on the path of full recovery, wholeness, and cure. All right. I pray God's blessings on each and every one of you. I'm asking every individual, number one, please make sure that you connect and you follow. And these are the different ways that you can connect. You can connect on Facebook, Dr. Kevin A. Williams, Instagram, Dr. Kevin A. Williams Official, Twitter, Dr. KAW Official. And you can send me email, megabossnews777@gmail.com. Also, support this podcast, support it. You know, before you go somewhere and forget and this, that, and the other, go ahead and do that now. You can Cash App $ Dr. Kevin A. Williams, Zelle, Dr. Kevin A. Williams at gmail.com, paypal.me/ Dr. Kevin A. Williams, or you can mail it to 1822 Short Road, Greensboro, North Carolina, 27406, and you can mail it there. And those are the ways that you can give. All right. Please make sure that you support. Forgive me because I got a little cold, but please make sure that you can that you support. And regardless of the size of your gift matters, because whatever you sow, when something is being given, you sow in, and the more you sow in, you can get more out. All right. Blessings to all of you. Have a wonderful evening, a phenomenal Tuesday. God bless you to all of you. Thank you for your time, and I pray this has been a blessing. God bless.